I've always been curious about what people mean when they talk about gut instincts. You hear it all the time. Stories about someone just knowing something was wrong, sensing that something fell off, and yet they ignored that nagging feeling. Looking back, I can say with certainty that my own gut had been sounding alarms for months leading up to my wedding day. There were warning signs, subtle but persistent, telling me that my fiancée, Lauren, and my best friend, Bryce, were getting a little too comfortable with each other. Uncomfortably close. But I was too caught up to give it the attention it deserved. Between my demanding job at a software consultancy, planning the extravagant wedding Lauren had dreamed of, and doing my best to appease her incredibly high-maintenance parents, Gregory and Vivian Tate, I barely had a moment to think. Sure, there were moments when jealousy flared, like when Lauren and Bryce would share a laugh in a quiet corner, or when I caught Bryce's gaze lingering on her just a little too long, but I was too drained to analyze what it meant. After endless 11-hour shifts, wedding errands, and dealing with a guest list spiraling out of control, I had no energy left to question every little thing. My parents, as loving as they were, simply didn't have the money or experience to help with the grand affair Lauren and her mother were orchestrating. That meant I was left juggling 100 responsibilities on my own. And yet, the red flags were right there in front of me. For example, Lauren and Bryce texted way more than seemed normal for a best friend and a fiancé. I'd catch them exchanging amused glances over their phones, laughing at jokes they refused to explain. If I asked what was so funny, I'd get vague responses, a casual shrug, a dismissive, "Oh, just an inside joke," or "You wouldn't find it interesting." I had known Bryce since college. We'd shared a tiny dorm room, pulled all-nighters for exams, and had each other's backs through everything. To me, he was like a brother. Maybe that's why I was able to push my doubts aside. I convinced myself that he'd never betray me like that. After all, he was my best man. He was supposed to be in my corner, right? Lauren, on the other hand, came from a world I wasn't used to. The Tate family had money, status, and an unshakable sense of superiority. Her father, Gregory, was a big name in local politics, and her mother, Vivian, was the type of socialite who floated through charity events with an air of quiet condescension. When I proposed to Lauren, they accepted, but not without making it clear that I was, in their words, marrying up. That attitude carried into the wedding planning. Initially, they'd said they'd split the cost 50-50. But then came the extravagant venue, the towering floral arrangements, the live string quartet, and the ever-expanding guest list that ballooned to nearly 280 people. My parents, a retired schoolteacher and a nurse on the verge of retirement, had to dip into their savings just to keep up. Every time I tried to set a budget, Lauren's mother would scoff. "We can't cut corners, we're the Tate," she'd say. "Do you really want people whispering about how cheap your wedding looked?" It grated on me, but Lauren usually sided with her parents. "Let them have their fun," she'd say with a dismissive wave. "We're only doing this once, right?" Famous last words. 7 days before the wedding, Bryce offered to handle hotel reservations for our out-of-town guests. "You've got enough on your plate. Let me take care of it," he said, flashing me some confirmation emails on his phone. It reminded me of our college days, trusting him without a second thought. I felt a wave of relief and thanked him. The night before the wedding, both families gathered for the rehearsal dinner at the elegant venue. Lauren, dressed in an almost bridal-looking white gown, effortlessly moved through the crowd of her father's relatives, most of whom barely acknowledged my existence. My parents stood to the side, clearly out of their element amid the wealth and grandeur. Across the room, Bryce shot me the occasional thumbs up. After the formalities, we shifted to the lounge for an after-party. Everyone was in high spirits, until I realized Lauren was nowhere to be found. Calls went straight to voicemail. A bridesmaid offhandedly mentioned that Lauren had stepped outside for some air, feeling overwhelmed. It seemed reasonable. It was the night before the wedding, after all. Maybe she just needed a moment alone. Then Bryce vanished too. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe he was making a champagne run or handling some last-minute details. But something inside me whispered, "Find them." Half an hour passed, then an hour. A gnawing curiosity took hold. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through social media, hoping for a clue. That's when I found it, Lauren's Instagram. She had accidentally uploaded a short story and deleted it almost immediately. But not fast enough. In that brief clip, I recognized the setting instantly. The hallway, the golden pattern on the carpet, the partially visible room number. It wasn't the venue where our wedding was set to take place. It was a different hotel entirely. My stomach clenched. Every doubt I had buried, every uneasy feeling I had ignored, came surging back with full force. I had to see for myself. I jumped in my car, weaving through traffic, my mind racing. Maybe she had gone to see a friend. Maybe Bryce was just helping her with something. But a darker possibility gnawed at me. What if they were together? I tried to shake the thought, but I couldn't. It felt too real. I knew Bryce had booked some hotel rooms for guests, but I didn't have the exact details. So I parked outside one of the boutique hotels in the district, walked into the lobby, and hoped someone at the front desk might recognize me from earlier reservations. I needed answers, and I needed them now. My plan wasn't fully formed, but fate seemed to nudge me in the right direction when I spotted Bryce's car parked near the entrance. If that wasn't a sign, I didn't know what was. I took the elevator up to the 7th floor, my pulse hammering in my ears. I scanned the door numbers, searching for the one I had caught a glimpse of in Lauren's deleted Instagram story. Room 723, 724. Each step I took echoed in the silent hallway, the overhead lights feeling unbearably bright, like they were exposing me before I was ready. But I wasn't here for a confrontation. Not yet. A deep part of me demanded proof, something undeniable, something I could never second-guess later. So I crept forward, pressing my ear to the door of room 724. At first, silence. Heart pounding, I tested the handle, barely breathing. To my shock, it wasn't bolted from the inside, only locked by the electronic mechanism. And as luck would have it, Bryce himself had handed me a master keycard weeks earlier, calling it a wedding emergency backup. Just in case something goes wrong with the guest rooms, he'd said. I fished it out of my pocket, slid it into the slot, and, after a brief pause, the tiny LED blinked green. The handle gave way with a quiet click. They had unknowingly armed me with the very tool that would seal their fate. My stomach lurched. I stepped inside, moving like a ghost. The room was dimly lit, soft shadows shifting along the walls. Then I heard it, a hushed murmur, low and intimate. My blood boiled. On the king-sized bed, tangled in the sheets, lay Lauren. Hair tousled, bare skin visible beneath the covers. She was sprawled sideways as Bryce leaned over her. They were deep in a quiet conversation, their voices too low to make out, but then she laughed. That laugh alone was enough. A fire raged inside me, every nerve screaming for action. I wanted to shout, to rip Bryce off the bed and make him feel every ounce of my fury. But a colder, sharper instinct took hold. Don't react. Not yet. I forced myself to remain still, my mind racing. The wedding was in less than 13 hours. Let them believe they got away with it. Let them stand at that altar, thinking I was blind to their betrayal. Hands trembling, I pulled out my phone, switched it to video mode, and zoomed in. My thumb hovered over the record button. Do it, I told myself. You'll want them to see exactly what you saw. I captured it all. Lauren's flushed face, Bryce's smug posture, the timestamp in the corner of the screen. They had no idea I was there. Then Bryce spoke, his voice low but unmistakable. We'll never get caught. Lauren laughed softly in response. My grip on the phone tightened. Perfect. The camera caught it. Every damning second. I swallowed the fury burning in my chest and forced myself to retreat, step by careful step, keeping the phone steady. No confrontation. Not yet. The door shut behind me with barely a whisper, and then I was moving. I didn't walk. I fled, my heart a thunderous drumbeat in my ears as I hurried down the hallway. The elevator ride felt agonizingly slow. Outside, the crisp night air hit me like a slap, shocking me back to reality. My breath came in ragged bursts. My hands were slick with sweat, my grip on my phone unsteady. But I had proof. Hard, undeniable proof that the people I trusted most had stabbed me in the back. I spent a few minutes forcing myself to breathe, to push the boiling rage into something manageable. Then I got in my car and drove aimlessly through the quiet city streets until I found a 24-hour diner. Sitting in a worn-out booth under fluorescent lights, I watched the footage in private. There was no misinterpretation, no room for doubt. And that was when the idea took root. They had humiliated me. Now, I'd return the favor. I didn't sleep that night. By 6 in the morning, I had downed 4 cups of coffee, scribbled notes for my wedding presentation, and mentally rehearsed every step I needed to take to ensure I had control of the microphone and projector. Our venue had a high-end AV system, originally meant for a sweet slideshow of childhood photos and relationship highlights. But that feed could be switched. A simple plug-and-play. I knew exactly how to override it. For a brief moment, I hesitated. After all, I'd be broadcasting something incredibly private, something that could leave Lauren and Bryce exposed in front of everyone they held dear. But then I thought of how they had done this, right before a wedding, right under my nose. The cruelty of their betrayal made my decision easy. By 6:40 a.m., I pulled up to my apartment, the one Lauren and I had shared for nearly a year. Unsurprisingly, she wasn't home. If she thought I was still oblivious, she'd probably sneak in at dawn, slip into the guest room, and pretend she had been out for a simple girls' night. But as I stepped inside, I found everything exactly as we had left it. The living room light remained off. The bedroom was untouched. The silence, for once, was welcome. I stepped into the bedroom, a space that once felt warm and familiar. Now, it was like stepping into someone else's life. Her phone charger still rested on the nightstand, and the ring box I'd given her sat untouched on the dresser. The pain of betrayal flared up, but so did the anger. Everything we had built together, thrown away for a cheap thrill with my best friend. I switched my phone to vibrate and tried to rest, but my mind refused to settle. Around 8:45 a.m., Lauren finally came home. I heard the soft beep of the door unlocking. Keeping my eyes shut, I pretended to sleep, curious if she would check on me. Sure enough, her footsteps were careful, as if she hoped to slip in unnoticed. She didn't even glance into the master bedroom. Instead, I heard her retreat to the guest room, probably to fix her appearance before I saw her. Half an hour later, I emerged, stretching and feigning a yawn like nothing was wrong. She sat at the kitchen island, hair brushed, dressed casually in a t-shirt and sweatpants. When she saw me, she gave a small, tired smile. "Morning, babe," she said lightly. "I crashed at a friend's place last night. Too much wine at the rehearsal dinner. You know how it is." I returned her smile, my mind still playing last night's footage over and over. "Must have been some party," I replied smoothly. "Just glad you're okay." I leaned in and gave her a quick peck on the cheek, swallowing the bile rising in my throat. Every instinct screamed at me to confront her, but I had to wait. Just a few more hours. Her eyes flickered. Was that relief? Or caution? She was watching me, trying to gauge if I suspected anything. I made sure my face remained unreadable. I wanted her to believe she got away with it. The wedding was scheduled for noon at the prestigious Meadowbrook Hill estate. My parents arrived at 10:15 a.m., all smiles and excitement, blissfully unaware of what was coming. My mother, glowing in her pastel dress, beamed as she hugged me. My father clapped me on the back, proud and sentimental. I forced a grin and muttered something about handling some last-minute AV setups. Lauren was busy with her bridesmaids, fussing over hair and makeup in their suite. Bryce was probably with the groomsmen, but I had no interest in seeing him. Let him think he was in the clear. I slipped into the AV booth overlooking the grand ballroom. Josh, the venue's technician, was adjusting the microphone and projector when I walked in. "This is Ethan, the groom." He introduced me to a colleague. "He's got some extra stuff he wants to show, right?" "Yeah," I confirmed with an easy grin, pulling a flash drive from my pocket. "I've got a surprise video." Josh chuckled. "Hey, it's your big day, man. Just give me the cue when you want me to switch the files." I tapped the flash drive. "I'll give you a signal. Maybe I'll just say, 'Roll it.' And trust me, you won't miss it." A twinge of guilt crept in, but I shoved it aside. They made their choices. Now, they'd deal with the consequences. The grand ballroom was breathtaking. High ceilings, sparkling chandeliers, and rows of elegantly arranged chairs. By 11:40 a.m., the space buzzed with excitement. Guests snapped selfies, exchanged greetings, and settled in. Lauren's side was massive, filled with the Tate elite social circle. politicians, business moguls, distant relatives. My side was much smaller, a quiet cluster of friends, colleagues, and family. Tradition dictated that I wait at the altar with the officiant while the wedding party processed in. But at 11:53 a.m., I was nowhere to be found. The officiant, a longtime friend of Gregory Tate, frowned as he scanned the room. Lauren's father checked his watch, irritation flickering across his face. My mother fidgeted, glancing anxiously toward the entrance. Vivian Tate, elegant in a lilac suit, whispered to nearby guests, "Where's Ethan? Is he always this unreliable?" She never missed a chance to undermine me. Lauren, tucked away in a private suite, was surely panicking by now, but I wasn't there to see it. Instead, I watched from the second-floor balcony, hidden behind thick curtains, studying the crowd. I could feel the energy shifting, a low ripple of unease spreading. By 12:03 p.m., the doors should have opened for the bridal procession. Instead, confusion swelled as guests exchanged puzzled glances. Perfect. I slipped back into the AV booth, where Josh hovered over the soundboard. He looked relieved when he spotted me. "Hey man, we're like 3 minutes behind. You good?" "Absolutely," I said, my pulse thundering as I picked up the microphone connected to the overhead speakers. My breath felt tight, my hands ice cold, but the fire in my chest kept me steady. It was time. I pressed the mic switch. My voice rang out across the grand ballroom. "Good afternoon, everyone." A hush fell over the crowd. Heads turned, searching for me at the altar. But I wasn't there. Confusion deepened. Lauren's father stood, scanning the room. Her mother clutched her pearls. The officiant hesitated, brow furrowed. "I'd like to thank you all for coming," I continued, my voice smooth, controlled. "It means a lot to me." A ripple of uncertainty spread through the guests. I could see it now, the first whispers, the raised eyebrows. And then, just as planned, I gave Josh the signal. "Roll it. We're going to have a slight change of plans before the ceremony starts," I announced, my voice carrying through the grand ballroom. "Actually, there won't be a ceremony." A ripple of gasps spread through the hall, one after another, like dominoes falling. Guests twisted in their seats, scanning the room, trying to pinpoint my location. A few even stood, craning their necks toward the sound system. Lauren must have been losing her mind in the bridal suite. From the AV booth, Josh shot me a wide-eyed look. I gave him a slight nod. He hesitated, fumbling with the flash drive before sliding it into the computer. His fingers hovered over the controls, waiting for my signal. Before we get too upset, I continued, my voice calm but firm. "I have something to show all of you. A brief video. Josh, if you would roll it." The massive projector screen, which had been looping a sentimental slideshow of Lauren and me in happier times, suddenly cut to black. For a moment, there was nothing. Then the video began, grainy but clear. Footage I had taken less than 13 hours earlier. Lauren and Bryce, tangled in the bedsheets. Their voices unmistakable. The date and timestamp shining in the lower corner like a damn branding iron. I had edited it just enough. Just enough to make sure Bryce's face was perfectly visible when he turned toward the camera, oblivious. Just enough to zoom in on the clock in the background, to make sure there was no mistaking the night this all went down. The night before this wedding. The room erupted. Shocked cries, gasps, whispers turning into a growing roar. Some guests sat frozen, hands clamped over their mouths. An older aunt let out a shriek. "Oh dear Lord." Gregory Tate, mid-stand, nearly collapsed back into his seat. Vivian's face twisted like she had just swallowed a mouthful of acid. Bryce, wherever he was, probably the groomsmen's lounge, must have heard the explosion of voices and known exactly what was happening. But it was too late now, buddy. Too late for both of them. Even from the booth, I heard frantic footsteps and shouts. The officiant gaped at the screen, powerless. One of Lauren's bridesmaids let out a wail, hands clasped over her mouth. Somewhere, a desperate voice pleaded, "Someone turn that off." I let it play for 15 full seconds. Long enough for every single person in that room to read the timestamp, to take in the betrayal, to see exactly why there was no wedding today. Then I cut the feed. The screen went black, But the chaos only escalated. Josh, still pale as a ghost, turned to me, his voice barely a whisper. "What in the world, man?" I ignored him and stepped away from the mic down below. The ballroom doors flew open, and there she was. Lauren, still in her wedding gown, face drained of color. Her perfect curls, her flawless makeup, none of it could mask the sheer panic on her face. "Turn it off!" she shrieked, voice cracking. Her frantic eyes darted around the room, taking in the horrified expressions, the stunned silence that said it all. Vivian barreled toward the projector, jabbing her finger at the staff. "Who let this happen?" she spat. But Josh, still cowering in the booth, had no answer for her. Then Gregory Tate stormed into the center aisle, chest heaving, eyes wild. "Ethan!" he bellowed. "Where is Ethan?" He turned in circles, looking for me, face burning red with rage. Around him, guests hesitated, torn between staying and running for the exits. My mother was in tears. My father stood beside her, rigid, protective, glaring at the Tate family like he was putting the pieces together. An older woman in the third row slumped in her chair. Someone rushed to fan her, calling for water. Panic, chaos, utter bedlam. Lauren spun in place, desperate, searching the crowd. The train of her gown dragged behind her, heavy as her sinking fate. Then, finally she found me, standing on the second-floor balcony, looking down. The room followed her gaze, hundreds of eyes locking onto me, like I was the ringleader of a particularly macabre circus. "What are you doing?" Lauren shrieked, her voice high with hysteria. "You're not supposed to see me before the wedding, you coward. Of all the things to say, of all the things to care about." I almost laughed. Even now, in the middle of this disaster, she clung to the dumb superstition about the groom not seeing the bride. "There is no wedding," I said, letting the words cut through the chaos. "You made sure of that last night." She froze. Tears welled in her eyes, sparkling under the ballroom lights. "Ethan, please, let's talk." "Not in front of everyone." "Why not?" I shot back. "You had no problem cheating on me with my best friend. I'd say everyone who spent money and time to be here deserves to know why the ceremony's canceled." Her mother, still flushed with rage, pointed a trembling finger at me. "You've ruined the Tate name in front of all these prominent guests. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is for us?" A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "Humiliating?" Lauren and Bryce humiliated me. I'm just returning the favor. Another commotion, this time at the front of the room. Bryce, stumbling out from the groomsmen's lounge, half-dressed in his tuxedo, hair a mess, eyes wild with panic. "Ethan, let's talk about this," he pleaded, stepping forward. I was already moving, down the stairs, into the main hall, toward him. Lauren scrambled to block me, her pristine white dress catching under her feet. I pushed past her like she was nothing more than an afterthought. My whole body burned with rage. My fists clenched so tight they ached. Bryce stammered. "Man, you took it out of context." She was upset. I couldn't hear another word. Couldn't stand it. Because all I could see, all I could hear was that video. The sound of them. The sight of them. The timestamp burned into my mind. An unshakable brand. They had done this. And now, they were going to face it. A raw, unforgiving rage surged through me. And in that moment, I acted impulsively, pushing Bryce away. The impact cracked through the silence like a gunshot. He staggered back, lost his balance, and hit the floor with a groan. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Lauren shrieked, "Stop it! You're hurting him!" She dropped to her knees beside Bryce, not caring that her wedding dress pooled around her in a crumpled mess. Vivian let out a strangled gasp, her face twisted in horror. "You monster!" Attacking him in front of everyone. I jabbed a finger at Bryce, who was struggling to prop himself up. "He's a monster. And so is your daughter. They played me for a fool, right under my nose. Now the whole world knows exactly who they are." A heavy silence filled the room. Lauren's tear-streaked face locked onto mine. "Ethan, I'm sorry. Okay, just stop." I turned to the guests, many of whom were now recording the scene with their phones, capturing every second of the disaster. "Thank you all for coming," I said, my voice laced with bitter sarcasm. "There won't be a wedding today. Apologies if you expected a heartfelt ceremony. Instead, you get the truth. With that, I turned and stormed out, pushing open the heavy double doors. Behind me, Lauren wailed my name, but I didn't look back. My parents followed, stunned but standing by my side. Back at our apartment, adrenaline still burned through my veins. My mother, shaken and tearful, sat beside me. "Ethan, are you sure? Is it all real?" she asked softly once we arrived. I nodded, pulling up the original, unedited video with a clear timestamp from the night before. She watched in silence, then pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. "Oh, dear God," she murmured, before pulling me into a hug. "I'm so sorry." My father stood behind her, his expression grim. "You did what you had to do, son." He placed a firm hand on my shoulder, but I could see the pain in his eyes. "We lost a lot of money on this wedding, but we'd rather that than see you living a lie." I thanked them, urging them to go home and get some rest. After plenty of reassurances that they were proud of me, they left. Still, a small part of me felt guilty for how public and brutal it had been. My parents had poured so much into this wedding, only to watch it explode in scandal. But what other choice did I have? Quietly canceling it wouldn't have given me closure. The truth had to come out. Once alone, I started packing Lauren's things. Her clothes, her endless shoe collection, her makeup sets, even the little decoration she had insisted on cluttering our space with. I boxed them all. I labeled everything in thick black marker, then rented a U-Haul trailer online. Near midnight, I loaded it up and drove to her parents' estate. The place was as gaudy as ever. A sprawling mansion in a gated community, a testament to their inflated sense of importance. The security guard at the entrance recognized me from past visits and eyed the U-Haul warily. "Everything all right, Mr. Caldwell?" "Just dropping off Lauren's things," I said evenly. He nodded and opened the gate. I pulled up to the grand portico, its towering stone pillars and massive mahogany door making the place feel even more self-important. My anger had dulled, replaced by a cold sense of finality. I stacked the boxes neatly on the doorstep, hammered the brass knocker once, then turned on my heel. As I climbed back into the truck, I saw a light flick on inside. Probably Gregory or Vivian, coming to see who had dared disturb their perfect world at 1 a.m. Let them find their darling daughter's belongings. She could move back in her childhood bedroom, for all I cared. I was woken the next morning by loud, furious knocking at my door. For a second, I thought I had dreamt it. Then came the familiar bark of Gregory Tate. "Open up. We know you're in there." Still groggy, I pulled on a t-shirt and swung the door open. There they were, Lauren, Gregory, and Vivian, all looking like they had spent the night stewing in their own anger. Lauren's eyes were puffy and bloodshot. Gregory loomed in a perfectly tailored suit, fists clenched at his sides. Vivian, in an expensive-looking coat, thrust a thick stack of papers toward me. "We need to talk about compensation," Gregory announced, his voice steely. I let out a short, humorless laugh. "Compensation? For what?" Vivian shoved the papers into my hands. "The wedding, obviously. We spent tens of thousands on this event. The catering, the venue, the hotel blocks. Your little stunt ruined everything." I skimmed the itemized receipts, unimpressed. "You do realize your daughter was involved with Bryce the night before our wedding, right? Pretty sure that's why everything went to hell." Lauren's face twisted with indignation. "You had no right to humiliate me like that in front of everyone. If you didn't want to marry me, you could have just called it off quietly." I clenched my jaw. I had every right. You and Bryce humiliated me. I just returned the favor. Actions have consequences. Gregory's voice rose, his face darkening. "We paid for half that wedding. Your parents covered the other half. But the final cost soared beyond what they contributed." He stabbed a finger at the receipts. "We want the money back. Let's call it 16,000. I gaped at them, barely able to process the audacity. "You think I owe you 16 grand? For a wedding your daughter wrecked?" Vivian's lips curled in disgust. "You pulled that disgusting stunt with the projector. We had important guests there, clients, donors, local officials. You humiliated us in front of people who control reputations. You can't just walk away without repaying some of the cost." I let out a sharp laugh. "Right. Because none of this would have happened if Lauren had just made better choices the night before our wedding. Lauren flinched. You troublemaker. Maybe if you'd been around more, if you'd cared about my needs. I cut her off with a scoff. Oh, so now this is my fault? You know what? Get out. All of you. I'm not giving you a dime. Gregory stepped forward, looming over me. Do you have any idea who you're messing with? I have influence in this town. Yeah? And I have that recording of your daughter, timestamp and all. If you want to throw your weight around, be my guest. We'll let the court of public opinion have a look. I'm sure your donors and local officials would love to rewatch it. Then we'll see who's really humiliated. Gregory's face darkened, his anger boiling just beneath the surface. But he hesitated. Lauren switched tactics, stepping forward with tearful eyes. Ethan, please. We loved each other. We built a life together. Let's not destroy everything over one mistake. One mistake. My voice trembled with disbelief. It wasn't an accident. You made a choice. I saw it. I recorded it. There's no coming back from that. Now, get out of here. Gregory's shoulders sagged as he realized they had no leverage. Sure, they could threaten me, but I held all the cards. Vivian sniffed, lifting her chin. You'll regret this. I shrugged. Not nearly as much as I would have regretted marrying your daughter. They stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to shake the frame. As soon as they were gone, I leaned back against the wood, exhaling a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. A wave of exhaustion and bitter relief washed over me. It was over. No wedding. No fiancée. No best friend. A hollow victory, but still a victory. Word spread fast. Friends reached out, some in support, some in shock, some in judgment. I told the story again and again, how I caught them, why I exposed them. Some called it brutal. Others called it legendary. I ignored the critics. Bryce texted me once. Dude, I'm sorry, but you gotta understand. I ignored it. He lost his job soon after for dishonesty. Fitting. My parents were torn, heartbroken over the wasted money, but relieved I dodged a disaster. My dad reassured my mom, better money lost than Ethan's dignity. I promised them I'd pay them back. The Tate tried to spin their own version of events, claiming I'd lashed out from jealousy. But the guests knew the truth. Their reputation was in tatters. Lauren, disgraced, drifted between social circles, maybe even back to Bryce. I didn't care. I moved to a smaller apartment, threw myself into work, and slowly rebuilt my life. The heartbreak lingered, but anger kept me moving forward. Over time, the scandal faded. Still, I kept a copy of that hotel footage, just in case anyone ever questioned what really happened. Enjoyed the video? Hit that like button and subscribe for more awesome content. Don't forget to comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching.